Welcome back to the heart of home. We are in full fall mode. That means I've got a lot of cleanup to do and a lot of prep for the winter when it comes to the garden and the yard and the eggshells and the bees. There's a lot. Just when you think harvest season is really busy, winter season comes here in zone 5. Now I'm not going to be cleaning out the entire garden because there's a few things that I want to leave. For example, like the seed pods. I just want them to dry out more before I actually harvest the plant and take the seeds inside and store them for next year. I want them to be completely dry. And then some of my loofah gourds, but I flick them and they sound hollow, and that's what people say is kind of your sign that they're ready. But they're still green. The plant is dead, but the loofah is still green. So the loofah in general this year, the 2025 garden year, has definitely been an experiment for me. I did harvest some loofah from my gourds that I harvested. I think I did like three or four gourds that I harvested before our first frost, but we've had multiple frosts since then, and I stopped protecting the plant, and so it has hence therefore died. I also store all of my eggshells up here, and I want to crush these and put them in the garden bed. So I am gonna do what is easiest and just show y'all the real thing. Instead of carrying them all and carrying the camera, we'll catch up to them down there. Hey, leave them alone. This has been my quick access for bee stuff because it's covered from rain whenever it rains, but I also don't love running down into the garage to get all my bee stuff, and I love convenience. I don't know about y'all, but I love for things to be easy, and so we do things the easy way around here. Apparently I had a tree trying to grow in my peppers. Oh, so sad. How did I miss these? If you guys saw, I think it was 2 videos before this one. I might actually try to take these inside. These were, I think these were the early, yeah, these were the early jalapenos. Somehow I missed them when I came out here to harvest before what was a threat. I think these ones are too far gone. They're just really mushy. I think the low for that night was going to be 34 and the freezing point is 32. And so I just didn't trust the weatherman. And I came out here and I harvested everything, which thank you God that I did that, because it did actually get to like 31 or 30 and the garden froze. It was a light frost, but then the next night we actually had a hard frost down at 28 degrees Fahrenheit. And so I did harvest everything, but apparently I missed a few peppers. I left my loofahs hoping that they would dry somewhat on the plant, and my tomatillos, they didn't. We didn't have tomatillos this season. I will say this rocket arugula, Roquette, is phenomenal. Like I said, we have had temperatures probably down to 27, 26 already, really hard frosts. And this stuff's doing great. And I planted this at the beginning of the year. And yes, it has bolted. And no, it does not taste bitter or anything else. It tastes just like it did. Make sure there's no bugs on there. Yeah. Spicy, really pungent. Is that the word? It's so good. I actually might harvest some of this and put it on our pizza tonight. We're going to do a prosciutto and caramelized onions with mozzarella with a pumpkin puree base on our pizza tonight. I saw it on Facebook Reels, if I'm being honest, and I was like, I have to do this. We are making this tonight, and that is the beauty of being, a homemaker, is I have the authority to choose what I'm gonna make, and that is what I chose to make tonight. Okay, so my goal for the next hour is to get the plants that don't have fruit on them cut off at the base and then chop and drop it. So we have tons. We have a soft maple in the front yard that is dropping a ton of leaves right now. And so I'm going to be using leaves as a mulch. If you have a garden or flower beds in general and there's exposed soil, that's never good. Lots of homesteaders say this, but the earth is modest. She'll cover herself if you don't cover her. And so that's what we're going to do. It's going to retain moisture in the soil. It's going to retain just the microbiome of the soil. And then it's also going to regenerate. It's going to feed the soil as it breaks down. It's like a natural composition cycle. So we're gonna do that, but I'm also going to chop and drop my plants because I didn't have any disease. There was a little bit on the tomatoes. I know this is gonna be super controversial because people say don't chop drop your tomato plants because of the risk of disease. I am very much like Anna of all trades, where I like things really easy. And so I am going to chop and drop the majority of my tomato plants, not all of them, because as you can see, it's literally towering over there. But I will use some of it as mulch, and that's okay. I really didn't have any disease. I didn't have any blight, nothing than your usual little spots here and there. And so I'm not concerned about it. And I learned a lesson otherwise, but I would guarantee, I would bet money on my soil would be perfectly fine next spring. If not, you guys can come at me. I am going to leave my loofah plants just because there's a few gourds that I am kind of waiting on. I'm going to leave my Provider bush beans from Organo Republic. Those things, y'all, those were so prolific. So prolific. I can't even, there's probably 16 to 20 gallons of beans that I got off that plant the entire season. These bush beans, it was like once they started putting off, every week I could come out and make multi-gallon harvests off of like 10 plants, which isn't a ton. I mean, you get 10 seeds in one packet. I mean, technically get more than that, but all you have to do is buy one packet. So that's the Provider bush bean. I think that's it. I've got radishes in one bed that I'm going to leave and see if they'll come of anything during this year. They're cool weather tolerant. Though obviously if we continue to get hard frosts, which we are getting some rain and some cooler weather this next 10-day forecast, but they might turn into something, they might not. If not, whatever. But yeah, beans, loofah plant, radishes, and obviously my rocket arugula, we're gonna leave. Everything else, it's time to go. Tomatoes do you think I'm gonna have volunteer next season in this bed? And ground cherries, these little wrappers that you see down here, you can almost tan brownish wrappers. Those are ground cherries, and like they say, once you grow ground cherries, you will never not have them in the garden, and this is why, because there's hundreds of them. So I am going to keep my dill. I know there's not a lot. There's literally like one sprig I could use here. These ones I could cut technically if I really wanted to, but I'm gonna leave it and see if anything will come of it. If anything, they'll dry on the plant and I'll just come out and harvest them, kind of like these guys right here. You can see them. Ta-da! I like this one. This is perfect. I am also being very cautious about getting the plastic out of my soil. I recently started buying these, which I didn't mind. These ones are actually from the farmer's market, but I have these exact little plastic tags from Earl May Garden Center, and I just use a Sharpie. Now, one of you guys in a previous video this summer told me about, oh shoot, what's it called? It's on Amazon. It's like the gardener's marker or something, and it's supposed to be a marker that doesn't like race off with rain or like watering the garden and such. Whereas Sharpie, yes, it lasts a while. Like I can show you. These are the ones that I bought. So you can see here, this was just Sharpie and poblano peppers. That's what it was. You can kind of see that it's on there now. Reminder, I don't water my garden as much as most people do. I kind of let it get stressed out and water it when I absolutely need to. So this wasn't exposed to a ton of water. It was exposed to a lot of rain. This was a rainy season for us, but I think next year I am going to be using and trying out that gardener's marker that you guys recommended. I did buy it. It's actually with my gardening stuff right now. It's also amazing how many peppers I missed. I mean, look at this. You guys saw Silas and I were like going to town on the peppers and looking at every angle, but somehow I still missed all of these guys. So these are early jalapenos. We have goat's horn, habanero, Anaheim, Georgia flame, a whole bunch of hot peppers right here. I could just throw them back in the soil if I wanted. If I had chickens or something, maybe I'd try to feed it to them. But I'm gonna take these inside because the cell structure of this plant, they're not squishy. I mean, this one's a little squishy actually. You can kind of see it, but for the most part, they're quite intact still. So I'm gonna take them inside and actually eat them. All right, on to the tomatoes. Honestly, the easiest way to do this is to just pull them. Now, I'm not gonna waste time chopping these up. I like to do things easy and the lazy way. And so I am just pushing them on top of my soil. Now, these beds, because they're new, the soil is still settling and compacting. So come next spring, I will definitely be adding compost on top of these beds, which means I'll either pull these out if they haven't decomposed enough, or just put the soil right on top of them. Either way, I'm not worried about it. This is a simple solution and it's really not going to hurt anything. It's only going to be beneficial. I think Doug is copying the behaviors that he sees me doing, which is pulling on the plants. I'm also being cautious about not burying the seashells because one, they're not going to decompose. If anything, they'll be a hindrance if I try to like throw a T-post in there and I hit a seashell. It's not going to be fun. But also my 4-year-old loves them. So we're going to pull them out so that he can replant them next time. So here are my provider bush beans. As you can see, like this one, perfect. Nice and hard. It's ready to be harvested and to save the seeds that are on the inside. However, like these guys, they're still green. Now, yes, they're mature enough that I could harvest these and save the seeds. Now, the germination rate might be a little lower than this one, for example, just because they haven't exactly met full maturity until they're, hard and dry like they would be in nature. Same thing for this guy. You can see the difference here. So I'm just gonna let them dry out on the plants. It really shouldn't be much longer. Now this one was too young before the plant hit frost. So you can see it's very tender, flexible. It's actually just starting to wrinkle up. Now the seeds in here are not mature, and so this guy I do not want. So I'm just gonna throw him back into the bed and let him decompose. But these guys, they're still strong. You can tell they are not flexible and flimsy. I am really sad that I didn't harvest my basil before that first frost. I thought maybe there'd be a chance that we would get through those 2 days of what was supposed to be a very light frost and then no frost at all, but ended up being a light frost and a hard frost, and it zapped my basil. So I was hoping that because we had 60-degree weather in the 10-day forecast, that when it got warmer, my basil, which still had flowers on it, would be flowers that my bees could actually come and pollinate. So fortunately, that was not the case, but I knew I was taking that risk when I left them. I think this is so funny. I have 2 potato bags that I like to plant. However, I, being a lazy gardener, often forget to water them, which is why I don't grow like anything in pots unless it's visible or like self-sustainable. And this is a prime example. I'm gonna clean the soil out, pour it into the bed, refertilize it, do all the stuff. And in doing that, I actually found potatoes in here. I really didn't think there was any because I just kind of forgot about them and I was like, they're not the priority. But there's little potatoes in here, which are usually expensive when you buy them from the grocery store. But I grew them in my backyard from probably 6 potatoes. Check it out. And they're not mushy. They are good to go. They're teeny tiny, as you can tell. They were just trying to put off and survive. I don't have a basket to put them in. That's what I'm gonna do, because they're so little. Is throw them in an egg carton. Just gotta make things work, Check out all the worms in here. That's a great sign. That's healthy soil right there. A lot of young worms too. Well, that's not too shabby. Here I was thinking there weren't any potatoes in there, and lo and behold, there was almost 1 egg carton worth of potatoes. So it should be said, if you don't already know this, if you live in Iowa or anywhere in the Midwest for that matter, you probably already know this, but beans are a nitrogen fixer or a nitrogen enhancer, corrector. And what happens is they absorb, there's little nodules down on the root system. I'll put a picture here. And they absorb nitrogen throughout that season. So if you cut the plant out the surface of the soil and leave the root system, that nitrogen will then be diffused back into the soil for the next year's plant, which keeps the soil's life maintained in a healthy way. And so while I'm doing that for the majority of my plants, if the stem isn't too big for the, the cutters that I'm using, but I leave all the root systems in the soil, but especially my beans because of that fact. But they are just going to decompose. Now, obviously those bigger systems like okra, which is like a small tree, they would take a long time to decompose. And so I will take those out. Not today. I'm going to let the okra continue to ripen or mature or harden on the plant so I can save the seeds. How many of y'all want to bet that I'm going to have basil growing? Honestly, all over the garden, but especially in this bed and over where the peppers were. Because all of this basil went to seed. That's what all of this is. And so we're going to have basil for days. For days. We're going to have basil coming out our ears next year, which the bees will love. I have been using this string to tie up my plants, and I love it because it's just that simple. Maybe. There you go. Just that simple. It was just a simple little bow tie. And then I can save these pieces for next year and not waste them. You could also use twine or just like yarn. I've seen people do that. Now I think that might be a little harder to just pull and save for the next year after being exposed to the elements. But this twiny string, I don't know exactly what it's called, but you guys saw it. I'll give you another look. This stuff I totally recommend. Super cheap, and then you can continue using it. Looks a lot different, doesn't it? Now the sun's starting to go down, so I'm just going to show you all what I have been doing. I have been pulling out the tomato plants for the most part because it's way more than I'm actually going to need to cover this soil. And I actually have some onions and leeks still growing, and I'm kind of curious to see what happens with them because this was kind of an experiment to see how much sun they truly needed. And yes, they need more sun than I gave them. But all of the foliage from the leaves, the tomato plants, when I pulled on them, just fell into the bed. As you can see, there's really not a ton of exposed soil other than over here with the arugula. But as far as the rest of the bed, it's mostly covered. So I am going to continue working. However, the sun is going down and it is starting to get cold. So all I have left to do is to continue pulling out, well, all of these tomato plants I'm going to put in a pile over there along the fence where we've been composting a lot of stuff over the summer. And it's just been slowly decomposing. And so I'm going to leave it to sit over there over the winter. And then that corner of the yard still needs cleaned up. Obviously the tea garden around the porch and then where the blueberries are over there needs cleaned up as well. However, I'm not going to get to that tonight. It's already 5 p.m. and now that the time has gone backwards, we are running out of daylight really quickly. And so the other thing that I'm going to do before covering up all the soil is take all of these eggshells, and this sky is so beautiful right now. Look at this. So I'm going to take all of these eggshells, just crush them up in my hands. That gives calcium back into the soil, not this year, but next year. I think it's so funny when people are like, oh, I'm going to fertilize my soil by putting eggshells and yada, yada, yada in there. And I think what a lot of gardeners, especially early gardeners and young gardeners, don't realize is that those elements in the materials you're putting in your bed, especially like the foliage, right? Or the carbon materials, the dry materials, the leaves, all of that isn't feeding your soil that season. It's feeding it in the future season. And so that is why I like to just kind of save up my eggs, my eggshells, and do this at the end of the season. The only time that I do this in the middle of the season is if I have too many eggshells and not enough space to store them, or if I'm having issues with slugs or other little critters that will like drag their bodies across the surface of my soil because they don't like eggshells, obviously, because it's scratchy and it will cut them. So that's really the only other time that I would do that in the middle of the season. But I've got my work cut out for me. I'm gonna go ahead and log off here and continue working until the sun goes down. I'll see y'all on the next video. See ya.